You don't have to sit. I'm gonna make a bold statement here, but meditation saved your life. I love that.
It did save my life.
Yay!
Life of Shira with Life of Caroline. Is this okay if I sit like this?
Yeah, 100%. We're both goddesses. There's always space for two goddesses in a room.
Yeah.
Ready to start?
Ready.
Okay. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Somatic Balance.108. My name is Caroline. I'm your head practitioner. And today, I wrote it down, we are in conversation with the beautiful Shira. Shira, you may know her from Triple J or your Spotify R&B playlist. Shira is an accomplished businesswoman and amazing vocalist. After years of running her own brick and mortar, as well as an online shop for male grooming businesses called Gensec, she started following her dream, shut shop, and followed her heart, or should I say her voice. I am lucky enough to have her as a friend for many moons, and I hope I got that all right. And please warmly welcome Shira.
Aw, thank you.
Yay.
Beautiful intro.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm here on this beautiful property with you, and we've been here for a couple of days, and today's the day I feel like I've come into my body and feel a little more relaxed. It's nice.
That's lovely. So to preface that, we are about 90 minutes north of Sydney in this beautiful retreat establishment. It was differently planned, but universe always delivers. And so now we use that opportunity to record this little intimate conversation.
Yeah.
We kind of had already 5 podcasts that were not
in
taped.
conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, biggest question first, which is the one I start most of those conversations with. Mm-hmm. How's your heart today?
Oh. I have a lot of different emotions that I'm carrying in my heart today. My heart feels very much at peace, but it also feels very heavy today.
That's a fair answer. Thank you for being honest and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. How's your heart today?
Oh, people don't normally throw that back at me. Open. As you know, my job is being a somatic therapist. Before I became a somatic practitioner, I was a meditation teacher for the longest time. And I think that's really worth the first longer dialogue, is how we met each other. And people who've been following for a bit longer, they know about all my publications. So meditation found me, and I really purposely say that way, about 12 years ago, going off 2026. And it literally shaped and changed my life. And that's kind of also the underlying current. We're trying to vibe here, bare face, wet hair, we both just had a shower after a beautiful morning practice. So it's kind of it's really basic.
Yeah.
And so we met through meditation.
Yes.
I would love to know how you experienced that first time when we met.
My memory of when we first met was through what once was called Making Meditation Mainstream, which is now Meditation HQ. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it changed names 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
So I was where are we now? Yes, Meditation HQ.
Which was a meditation not-for-profit that it still exists, an incredible not-for-profit by Jason, where people gather on a beach at sunrise every Saturday. And his vision was to have people across 100 beaches in Australia having easy access to free meditation and learning about meditation without the sort of woo-woo concept that people often think it is. So shout out to Jason. And so he invited me. His long-term goal was for me to start the Bondi one, which ended up happening. But at that point, Jason and I were new friends, and he invited me to the Manly meditation. That's when I met you. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of the leading up to that. But yes, the Manly.
Yeah. So what my experience was, first of all, what a way to meet someone is after a 20-minute sunrise meditation, because I loved that experience so much. It was the first time I had done that. I'd been meditating, but I'd never done 20-minute meditation on a beach at sunrise. And it was...
Oh, so it was your first time?
That was my first time.
Oh, I'm so honored.
And then we all went for coffee after and we chatted. And so I guess my experience experience was that I felt really open. I remember feeling that way because that's sort of the magic that comes after a meditation. Even if you've got stuff going on, even if there's hard things going on in your life, I always find after a meditation there's a sense of peace that comes regardless of what's going on. And if things are good in your life, you just feel even more expansive, like, because things ebb and flow all the time. But I just remember feeling really open, and we had really great chats.
Thank you. Yeah, similar. I mean, I never knew that it was your first meditation on the beach, sunrise. That's really honoring. Thank you. By that point, I was leading that meditation, which I can do through Jason. And I just might want to preface, since we are there, trigger warning. Jason started it in 2018 in Avalon, the northern beaches of Australia, Sydney. At the time, it was about to create a space for men. So it started for meditation for men based on the high suicide rate amongst men, particularly in Australia. However, very quickly, obviously, he noticed, mindfulness is a really big deal and it should be accessible to everybody. And that's when he converted it from meditation for men to making meditation mainstream, put it on a public beach, Saturday morning, 6:30, and we're still rocking. Some of them have new names just because we became so big, which is great. And so there's kind of little succulents coming up from it. So Bondi is now the still point, led by Ben. He's amazing. We love him so much. Hi, Ben, not a shout out.
Hi, Ben, yeah.
Beautiful soul. I've been leading Manly for 7 years before I moved away, but then kind of took that with me and kind of like gave it my own spin, and now do it where I now live, in more like in the Sydney centre.
So I launched the Bondi one.
Yeah, I remember that because I came for the launch.
And I think did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then I think at some point Ben became a volunteer and joined the crew, because we always have a crew, even if one person's championing the setup.
Yes.
Which is what you do as like the leader, I guess.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm so proud that they took over when I left Sydney, and Bondi's going strong.
Yes, they are.
They're getting stronger and stronger in terms of like the reach, the group, the size of the group, the people that are coming through. I'm still in the WhatsApp group, so I get all the updates.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
See, like, I'm like so anti-social. I'm like, I don't have WhatsApp. I don't have Facebook. So if you ever want to reach me, sorry guys, YouTube it is.
Yeah.
By the way, guys, we're talking pre-COVID here. Right? We're like talking 2019, 2020. And then depending on the locations, obviously, we had like the worst lockdowns in Australia from the entire world.
2 weeks after launch, we were in lockdown.
Yes.
We carried it on online. Well, remember we were doing all the online sessions?
Yeah, I remember we had that May 2020. We had this huge every day, 3 or 4 of them, like a morning, a midday.
Yeah.
And then we had like this 24-hour one that same year.
Yeah. But the weekly ones, the Saturday morning ones, we carried them on online for a while.
See, I don't know that because Manly itself, because when you think of the Northern Beaches, for the people that are not familiar with it, it's a big peninsula. It's like you get there by a ferry or by a bridge, right? So it's kind of like you can't really access it any other way. So that was fully cut off. So that council, that particular suburb, had its own rules, sort of. So we were allowed to go out. So I ended up going to the beach every single Saturday. So we continued being outside.
Right.
And there's this really powerful photo, which like obviously was only around the northern beaches, but all of the news outlets from that council region billboarded it with a mask outside 2 meters apart.
Yeah.
It's like, who came up with that? And why did we all follow it? So yeah, we said every Saturday throughout entire COVID, because it was mental health. Mm-hmm. So we did obviously speak with the council coordinators and be like, and the police were patrolling, like we're not allowed to sit down.
Yeah.
The only people we're allowed to sit down is when you join a meditation group.
Yeah.
And so, that was the only 20 minutes in the week where you're allowed to stand still or sit still in a congregation.
Yeah, tough times. But at least you were able to keep doing it. Bondi, they really tried.
I remember like going through news that they had like a fence up.
That's right.
It's
because
like,
people were not following the rules.
Yeah, which makes sense. Like, they were stupid. Sorry, but they were.
Crazy times. We've come a long way.
Yes, we did. Amazing. So with that, next question. Do you meditate?
I do.
Tell me more.
So one of my favorite memories I have is a funny little one that I kind of smile at whenever I think about it. In my school, as a 10, 11-year-old in year 6 in Sydney, for whatever reason, my school had like religious studies, but also allowed you to choose meditation.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that.
Now, I come from a Jewish family, even though I'm not a practicing...
She just put her hand on the mic and I was like...
even though I'm not practicing now, but I come from a Jewish family, at the time there was no reason for me to not select Judaism and like do that study. But I didn't even tell my parents, and I selected meditation. So I was drawn to it. And I still remember to this day my very first meditation, because it was a guided one. About 10 other students chose it in my class. So we were a little group, tiny little baby group. And we had a teacher that was teaching us and guiding us through a meditation. I remember the visualization. It's still like in my heart. And years later, that turned into a curiosity about yoga. And it took over a decade before the practice became something that I was really devoted to. But it was always something I found and like eventually seeked out. And then when I moved to Melbourne, I found out about this Vedic meditation course, and I was really drawn to going. I just had a feeling it was going to be really important for me. So I learnt about it was a 3-day course, and I learnt the science behind it. I understood what it does for my brain. I got to practice in a group. I was guided by a teacher who's been practicing for many years, goes to India. Like, I was given my own mantra. So now I practice morning and night, 20 minutes, and the Vedic
with that
mantra. Yeah. Generally, what I like to do is wake up and meditate.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it sets my brain up for the day.
Agreed.
If I can, I get my second one in the afternoon. If I don't, I'll still get it in before bed.
I love that though.
Yeah.
And I do agree with this morning set up the brain, and the Vedic meditation has such... I think that's the most studied one, and therefore, the most accepted one, because that's what you hear all around the world, particularly celebrities. So Vedic meditation is an arm of the transcendental meditation. Your Vedic meditation teacher gives you a mantra assigned to you, a word or a phrase or something else, and that is done for you to keep. So you're never going to share that with anybody, and you will have that as your focal point, right? So when you look at the other types of meditation, there's visual meditation and there's Zen meditation, where you focus on a specific item, like a blade of grass. You have all of that in my books. We spoke about this in the video. If you're interested in more, I'll link it below. There's a whole book I've written about all the different types of meditation. The Vedic one, or the transcendental one, is the one that's mostly researched. And so Tom Hanks talks about that. I know that he loves it. You have something to hold on to. It's the opposite of misconceived mindfulness meditation, where you're like, I can't sit still and clear my mind. This is not what it's about anyway. But
no, it's not.
That's the misconception.
I think when I talk about meditation, I'm most passionate about people understanding that they can't do it wrong. One of the best takeaways that I got from that workshop was that a lot of people, when they're hearing about meditation, they'll say, but I can't meditate because I sit down and I just start thinking. If you go to the gym, you're doing a squat, but when you're meditating, that's the mental squat. The moment you observe a thought and then let it pass, that's the mental squat. The practice is you notice the thought and you sort of let it pass like a cloud. And
that's exactly what I use when I guide.
And so when people think they can't do it right because they're thinking a lot, all that means is that your mind is really active. And so you need to sit with that even more so, because eventually it clears. So one of the things my teacher had taught me was your meditation is never wrong or right. It's either like really active or not so active, feels blissful or feels chaotic, but it doesn't mean it's bad or wrong. It's just your brain's going to do whatever it needs, and your only job is to sit.
Exactly.
Love that.
And depending on the meditation. I mean, there's obviously also movement meditation, right?
Yeah.
Yogic Tai Chi, Qigong, walking meditation. You know, when I'm hosting bigger retreats with groups, I think you've been in one of those last year.
Yeah.
I was talking in my workshop about that. A former human in my life, he was an active swimmer every morning in the ocean. And the way he described when he was swimming, that was meditation. He was so present with his breath. And he's like, and then my arm is gliding through the water and I feel it and the coolness and the wetness and the whatever. I'm like, yeah, whatever, you're swimming.
That's so interesting because my partner says the same thing. He's a swimmer and he says that's his meditation because...
And you have to, because like otherwise you sink. You know, it's the movement, it's the breath, it's the element, it's all of the above. You don't have to sit.
You definitely don't. One of the other things my teacher said was, don't worry about the experience you have when your eyes are closed. Pay attention to your eyes open experience. I really do.
I love that. Thank you. Well, we kind of skipped the next question then. Like, how did it find you? Because you were sharing about your school experience. And I think that is amazing. I love that it found you so early. Like, I feel like I'm such a late bloomer when it comes to mindfulness. When you look back, hindsight 2020 is always really clear. There have been so many times in my life where energy, universe, God, whatever you want to name it, knocked on my door and was like, girl, this is your path, not that.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. But me too in other ways. And also I feel like I only really took the practice to another level, like where it's, you know, a devotion and it's something daily and it's something that is really like brushing my teeth kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's only happened in the last, I'm going to say 3 years. You know what I mean? So even though I've always been around it, curious about it, dipping in, dipping out, this level up of this is a daily practice and very, very important to me, to a place where it's like drinking water. That's only been in the last few years.
Great.
Great. Yeah.
No, thanks for that. Like, for sharing and giving us a bit of insight. Obviously, the meditation is so huge, right? And we touched on that on like so many parts of your life. You tell me. I would imagine, of the conversation we had off camera, in life, over the last few years, talk me through your experience in, through, and after COVID. How you like managed, or maybe not, to stay sane, and how that eventually tied into walking away from your business and choosing your passion as a new career, rather what I suggest the majority of society would see as a more successful path or more accessible path to create success in a Western sense.
Yeah, there's a few parts.
Yeah, there's a few parts.
Okay, well,
just share what feels comfortable. Do you mind if I put my hair back while you talk?
Not at all.
Cool.
Get comfy.
Thanks.
Okay. COVID was a really difficult time, goes without saying, and in many ways I was incredibly privileged through that time, but I definitely had my own big challenges. When I was running my business and we had no idea how long it was going to go, what the lockdowns, what that impact was going to have. Initially I was very much in denial.
Sorry, can I just quickly jump in here? You had employees too, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to preference that. We're not talking about a sole trader desk business here.
No, I had a company.
Yeah, like that's full-on company, storefront in the galleries in Sydney, like
Online
one of the
business.
Prime real estates. Just for reference, I think, to see like how big it was to walk away from. I think it's really important to see that.
Yeah, we had investors lined up, we had a valuation, we were about to scale nationally, had a team and an online business as well, and a brick and mortar, in the heart of Sydney CBD. And I hadn't actually been, consistently singing or writing for a long time in that chapter. I'd also just recently gone through a divorce. So the divorce happened just before COVID started. So big changes, big uncertainty. Everything felt like in a way it was falling apart. The best thing that came of that was the pause that COVID forced in lockdown, when I realized how burnt out I was and that I wasn't actually following my path. That a lot of ideas had been projected onto me about what would look good and what I'm capable of, but not necessarily what I really, really wanted.
I love that statement. Can I just quickly go in there? Capability is something that keeps showing up for a lot of people, including myself. Just because I'm capable of things doesn't mean that you have to put me through those. I love that.
Yeah. And you know, we don't have enough time on this podcast to go into how and why and understanding all of that. But the reality is...
That's for the Diary of the CEO.
Yeah.
That's too businessy for this one anyway.
Yeah.
I give Stephen a call, and then you go to Stephen
love that
and talk
podcast.
about that.
Shout out. But essentially, it was the beginning of, breakdown/breakthrough, really. And one thing I did do, like when the lockdown started, was I started to write again, like songs. And COVID was quite a process. 2020 is where it began. It was really scary. Money for everyone, as we know, is a big and difficult relationship. It's not even just a conversation. It's your relationship to money. But, anyone going through hardship, it's very scary. It destabilizes you. So it impacted my mental health. And that's, I guess, part one of your question, because how did I get through COVID? It was really tough. I was in survival mode. I held on as long as I could, but through the pause and the lockdown and this and that, I started to slowly realize, A, I was really burnt out, and B, I was not living the life that I wanted to live. I was no longer able to really serve anyone because I wasn't serving myself.
I love that though, when you say these words, serving, I really believe in those words.
I think that's important when you talk about being very honest with yourself and what a meaningful life means to you. And it's not always the glossy version of what looks pretty. And ultimately, I believe that's what the practice gives me, is that access to the willingness to be honest. And sometimes the
meditation
best
practice.
Yeah, sometimes the best decisions don't feel good, but they're good for you. And in my heart, I wanted to pursue music. I had no idea what that was going to look like, but I just knew that's where my heart was. I went further into darkness before I came out the other side.
It's a little bit like that, isn't it? I feel like once you know to be willing to walk away, you don't necessarily prepare for this next drop before you come out.
Oh, because it's a death. The version of me in that life was dying. I feel
like we have to talk about that a little bit more once we wrap this part up.
And it was scary. Everything I thought about my life was being questioned and unraveling. It happened so quickly that the recovery period was really tough and really rough. But once I no longer had the physical store, no husband, no physical store, there was no reason for me to stay in Sydney. And that's when I was like, well, I want to go to Melbourne, because I have a feeling, based on the times that I'd spent there, that music community was going to be more accessible to me there. And all of the darkness that I carried came with me, so I still had to work through it. The new city didn't change that, but I did make a move that was at least towards the direction of the chapter that I wanted to create.
Whenever she says move, there's a cow mooing out there.
Oh, really?
And
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, it's just like every single time you started move, that cow went moo.
There you go.
I have this actually next on my list to talk into grief, growth, and healing. So if you feel comfortable, would you share a little bit about that? Because I remember, as your friend, now being in a different city rather than just a different suburb, and not being able to just hop on the bus or get on a car and come over and be like, that's okay, you sit in the bed and cry and I make a tea.
Yeah, gosh, that would have been nice, honestly.
A little harder. Walk us through as much as you feel comfortable to. Keep in mind, this is going on the internet. What's up there, it can't be taken down. So yeah, maybe with your share, not maybe, definitely with your share, there'll be people watching who are like, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. And that's why I believe in my work and the work I do and the books I read.
If so that's what comes of it, then...
Yeah, so whatever your comfort level is on that grief. Like, obviously, I work as a somatic practitioner mostly with grief, stress, and trauma. That's my niche. So grief for me is a big deal to talk about and to heal. Share a little about how that looked for you. And when you, if possible, if you remember and can recall, when you were having that light bulb moment, sort of to speak, to be like, I am grieving, like being able to coin that term of what you were going through.
It took a long time. I was really in like a functional depression, and I was so stressed that I didn't have access to, I was initially leaning on unhealthy coping mechanisms. I still meditated, I still went to the gym, I still went to yoga, but I also did things like watched heaps of Netflix to numb out, ate comfort food to numb out. It was just like, that was my normal. Like,
did you know at the time that is the representation of functional depression?
No.
I just want to preface here very quickly. So functional depression is when you are, in the little sense as the word says, you're still functioning. So, and that is when people end up, when people commit suicide and the rest of the world around them, I didn't see it coming. Because there's something in them that is in misalignment, but they still show up to not having to go in that part that is misaligned. So you do go to the gym, you do your meditation, to the outside world and even to yourself for the longest time. It looks like you're doing fine and you're like, there's just something not right. I don't know what's not right because I'm doing everything right. That is functional depression. So something inside is milling away and dying while you like, think of a boat having a leak. You keep rowing faster and faster and faster, but that leak is still there. Like, you're still not going to make it to land.
And the thing is that what was different for me is that I knew I had a very obvious reason as to why I wasn't feeling happy. Like, it was obvious in the sense that, my business was collapsing. I'd been through a divorce, but I didn't realize that that was actually representative of much deeper things that had been living out of alignment, and there was a lot of unraveling that followed that. So, but it was just normal for me to lean on those coping habits. At the time I was still drinking, at the time I was vaping, there were just habits that, when I think about me as a human at my core, at my essence, are not actually in alignment with my belief systems, with my true values around health and living well and living in alignment with those values. I was surviving and coping, and that was probably the best realization I had, which happened in tandem with recognizing that I'm depressed and that it's actually not just about the business. The business is a symptom of choices I had made out of alignment as well, or in terms of the life that I had ended up in. I did the best I could with what I knew. It was not like I was living recklessly, or there was still an element of truth in the things I applied myself to. But when I really thought about choosing a life, I hadn't chosen a life that I wanted for me. I was choosing a life that was going to make someone else happy, or what I thought other people expected of me.
So would you say that was like one aha moment, or was it more like a transcendence, like a prolonged awakening?
Prolonged awakening over time.
Yeah, so it was not like one day you're like waking up or stumping your toe or whatever and you're like, oh my God.
There would have been a few of those collectively. And at the time I also microdosed on medicinal mushrooms and things like that, and those journeys helped me as well. I was doing therapy, lots of different things helped me. That was very much a death period. I didn't realize that that's what that was. I hadn't yet fully tapped into the side of me that loves and leans into spirituality. I was so disconnected that I was having dark thoughts. Trigger warning, but I was having dark thoughts, but later I could look at that and say, yeah, a part of me genuinely wanted to die, but that's a part of me, like a version of me, that's allowed to have a death and be reborn. It was just piece by piece. The turning point was going to that Vedic meditation workshop. That was the turning point.
Amazing. I'm gonna make a bold statement here, but meditation saved your life.
Yeah, I believe in that statement. I mean, in those 3 days, nothing changed, but everything changed. When I didn't really have the energy to practice, you know, I'm still a functioning depressed person, but I have all this information that I've just learned. I would say to myself, it's your medicine. And that's what kept me showing up for the practice. If you know you're not well, have your medicine. Plus it was free. There was no excuse.
Yes, exactly.
So it was also pivotal because I was actually starting to take accountability for myself.
Keyword!
Yeah, and that was the thing. It was like part of the surrender and the unraveling was recognizing that I was responsible for my life. Even though other things had influenced my choices, at the end of the day, I was responsible for my life, and also know that I did the best I could with what I knew, and that now I got to try again.
I love that.
But that was the aha moment. Like from there, things started to shift. But getting to that point was really hard because the human condition wasn't allowing for a bit of surrender that wanted to come through. There was like a lot of critical thoughts. The critical thoughts were causing the suffering, the shame, the blame.
Yep.
Once I was able to surrender and just accept my life as it was and let go of every other bit of pressure of where I thought I was meant to be, I could just kind of find some peace and allow myself to take little baby steps to moving forward.
So you've been now mentioning it a couple of times, and I did obviously say earlier I want to go there. I would really love to delve a little deeper into those phases that we both call death. You alluded to it just earlier, that spirituality found you rather than you finding it. I really love that too. And I do resonate that I also feel for the last 3 to 4 years that there are phases of us and parts of us that we've outgrown, and those die away. It's almost like when you look into Mother Nature and you go into winter, you know, like leaves are falling. Particularly in Australia, having obviously European background, these huge palm trees, they then lose one of these massive leaves, right? So that part has died and fallen off, but the rest keeps growing. And you can actually see how that palm tree with those rings then has grown over the last year, which eventually then becomes a normal stem. But if you really go close and look, you have still these measure marks of how the palm tree started. So part of it needs to die away for it to keep growing. Totally resonate with that. What is your depth of death that you think was the worst of all of the different deaths you had so far?
The thing that comes to mind is, because each death there's an identity that's dying.
Yes.
With that death. The way in which you see yourself, or the way in which you found yourself living and operating, which equals a particular identity. And for me, when I was having awakening moments and I was realizing that I was not living and operating in alignment with my true essence and with the highest wisdom and with the highest good, that a part of my identity was dying.
A question there sparks thinking of, admittedly, one particular person in my life at the moment. What do you think makes a difference between people to accepting the pre-death without the rebirth, and they're fine to be stuck because they want to hold on to that identity they have carved out for themselves or society has put upon them they can't let go of? The immediate word when you just said that, and it never came to me before, was bravery.
Well, I was going to say, if they're stuck there, then they're really afraid.
Yeah.
Because
which matches with me just using bravery. It's just two different sides of the same coin.
Yeah, and I never felt brave. I didn't feel brave when I was allowing that unfolding to happen. When I was surrendering to that truth, I didn't feel brave. I felt anything but brave. I felt there was a lot of like sadness. But you know what it was, right before the like death moment and the accepting, there's a lot of fear and a lot of shame.
Yes.
And so if you don't feel like you can surrender there, then you get stuck in the fear and the shame.
Correct. So what got you to this point to go beyond? What helped you?
Well,
because we're all different. I know what helped me, and I've been there many times over, and I have a very rational explanation to that, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
the way I experienced acceptance is the human version of those dark thoughts were, I just want to switch out all the lights and be done. But I also knew I was never going to do that to myself.
You're speaking suicide.
Yeah. And that's what I mean about, like, when we talk about literal death versus spiritual death.
Correct.
So I recognized that a part of me had got to a place where I was just ready to give up and just didn't feel like I could go on, like I wanted to go on, like I had anything left, like I had any meaning. But that was because I was so stuck in shame and fear and the thoughts that were spiraling. There was a whole narrative that was causing the suffering. When I realized and recognized I'm actually not someone who's ever going to do that, because I don't take it to the next level of thinking proactively doing that. I think, okay, I at least had the awareness of, this is how I feel, but I'm not going to do that.
So what do you think is the difference between you and I and people who are getting to this point and being like, well, I'm not going to actively do anything about it. It would be nice. Like in my experience, we had this conversation a couple of days ago, actually in the car getting up here, that I was just going through a really tough time. I would never proactively take my own life. However, I do have an underlying heart condition. There have been moments in the last 2 weeks where I went to bed and I was like, wouldn't it be nice if I go to bed
and don't
fall asleep and just don't wake up? I did not feel ashamed having had that thought.
I did.
So yeah, that educational piece of like, you can have those thoughts with and without shame, like we just discovered, obviously. Shira felt shame about that, I didn't. But that doesn't mean that you are actively having to pursue that thought, right? It's one thing to wanting to fall asleep and not wanting to wake up, and it's another one to proactively seek an ending. So I think what I really would love for you guys who's watching this, be okay with acknowledging that you would like this to be over, but also be okay with, I don't want to do it.
Well, I think, look, it's really hard when you're in that place. This is a very delicate topic that I'm being conscious of, but it's hard in that place. If you're already there, it's hard to have access to a higher wisdom. But if I can offer anything from my experience anyway, for whatever reason, I was able to ask myself, but why do I want this to be over? Like, what is it about this life right now that I need to be over? And I was able to recognize that I was putting way too much pressure on myself. I was way too caught up in how things looked. I had so much shame about the state of my life, and I managed to get to acceptance through just releasing all of that pressure, and just that was my acceptance. It was like, I'm here. This is where I am. I need to figure this out. But the pressure was the bit that was wanting me to end it. The pressure.
But the pressure is the outside world and the programming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like...
And the thoughts that come with that.
Yeah, and so I feel like, honestly, what I'm banging on about in my books, my educational parts, and the reason why I started this YouTube channel, not just in conversation, but the other videos I do as well, is how important mindfulness is. Because if you don't have mindfulness, you don't have awareness. And then you don't have those moments of clarity to ask yourself those questions, right? So it does, in the end, come always back to meditation saves lives.
It saved my life, but
saved my life and every single person I spoke to who meditates.
And also I want to say, like, really speaking to the question that you asked me, when I recognized that I just wanted to not wake up, but that I was never going to actively do something to myself, when I accepted that part as well, that like ending it actually isn't an option. I can fantasize about it and romanticize about not waking up, but it's not actually an option. It's not a step I would take. So then I had to go through a process of, so how do I live in this life, knowing what I know now, feeling the way I feel now? And that was the beginning of releasing the pressure. And that's also when the grieving process began, because I was grieving ideas that I'd had about who I was, who I had to be. Even if they were ideas I didn't want, I was still grieving them, because now you're living in a very different way. If all of that goes and you're releasing all this pressure, all these ideas about who you're supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like for you to be successful, what it's supposed to look like, that if I do X, Y, Z, then I'm worthy, then I'm happy, then this can happen if I do this, or if I look like this. It was probably the first time, even though I hadn't figured anything out yet, but reaching that moment was the first time I felt any kind of peace. And I was like, okay, this is ground zero. Now we start again.
Yeah, I love that a lot. Thank you for sharing. And so with that, we basically tail into the almost like the second last of the two topics I would love to touch on, coming out on the lighter note. The healing process. I feel like what a lot of people are afraid of is having to figure out who they are outside of those parameters they've been told they are, and having to whatever degree, reinvent themselves. It's a really scary thing to become who you truly are, and
that's brave.
Particularly not knowing who that actually is, like figuring it on the way down, you know?
Yeah. That to me is the brave part. In a world where it's, you know, we are kind of, it's easy to get caught up and be fed all these things that you're meant to look like, or that I actually think it's bold and brave to just learn how to be yourself and be true to yourself. And it's simple, but it's not simple, because there's so much conditioning involved by the time you get to a point in your life, peeling away all these added layers that you didn't choose to put on, you know? So,
well, that is healing.
That to me is what the healing process has been. And it's not linear.
Absolutely not.
I don't know if that is a helpful phrase or not. It's the truth, is in my experience, and I've heard it, and people have said it to me when I needed to hear it, and I believe it to be true. It's not linear. It's not, you know, you want it to just be like this, but it's not. It's very much like this. And I think that what the meditation practice teaches us is allowing what is.
What I love, the sentence that stuck with me from the very first time I ever been taught meditation by my teacher back in Thailand, which is the philosophy of meditation, full stop. But the way he phrased it was just like, whoa, everything in life is temporary.
Yeah.
Even life itself. And that is where it's like, we can use that as the weapon, as the pressure point. We can use that as it's gonna end anyway, what's the bloody point? Or we're gonna go like, it's gonna end anyway, let's just make the best out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like everything has a half full and half empty analogy. So I feel like healing, why not trying? Because everything is temporary. Like it might not work, but you might just give it a shot. And this whole not linear makes so much sense, because with healing, have you seen, there is this, I think it's an Instagram video where it's a bit of sand and there is this rake going through in circles, and then somebody draws in it and disrupts the circle, and then the rake keeps going, and every single time it closes that gap a little bit more and a little bit more, and just kind of giving the analogy, it comes back until you learned a lesson. Right? And eventually you learned a lesson, and then you have that perfect circle again without disruption. And so I feel like that speaks really true to my experience when it comes to healing. Like there's things where I'm like, again, I really thought I got this part down. Like really I have to go through this again. What did I not learn yet? And I feel like the most beautiful thing is, again, comes with awareness and meditation. You start noticing those repetitions. Different smell, different color, different outfit. But the lesson is the same. And you're like, damn it. Still working on this one.
Yeah. And this is why I believe in the practice, and also actively being involved in the practice. Not just, I mean, whatever you can do is amazing, but you know, going to a class, hearing the teachings, whether it's a yoga class, a meditation class, a workshop, I think that as human beings, we just forget. We forget things that we learned yesterday. And so, you know, I'm not a religious person, but I consider myself to be devoted to a spiritual life, you know. We're spiritual beings having a human existence, not the other way around. And so by constantly being around those teachings, because everything is temporary, is a very Buddhist teaching. It's very linked to Buddhism and the yogic philosophies. And so when you're just showing up and your teacher is giving you a chapter of something from those teachings, it's just a reminder. And we need to feed our brain and our mind nourishing thoughts and nourishing ideas as much as we need to fuel our body with nourishing food. So surrounding yourself with good people, showing up to classes that offer you that, reading books, listening to podcasts, like that's all part of it, because then it becomes more of your belief system and your daily, and the more you are accessing that, the more those thoughts become your default thinking. And that's what I've been doing, is rewiring. So if I have a tough day, it's not too far away in my toolbox to think everything is temporary, or to have a mantra, this too shall pass, or to notice that I'm being hard on myself and say, you know what, I'm going to be really kind to myself today, and just exhale. And suddenly that pressure pot that would have been way bigger if I didn't notice is not so big anymore. Now whatever's causing some level of stress or discomfort is much more manageable. And I think it's all those little micro moments that actually count in your daily life. Yeah. So the more you can show up for yourself and be around those things, those conversations, the more that it's just infiltrated in the way that you think and breathe.
I love that. And that's the perfect segue to our final part of this conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So once you chose a new lifestyle, when do you think is a good time to make it your way of life?
I think recognizing that you want it to be a way of life is actually the first step. Like when we have goals that are based on how things are going to look, everything is connected. So I'll use a common one, which is like people who want to lose weight, you know, and they often go on these like 10-week challenges or whatever. But like anything in life, I just think from my experience, I'm learning that it's more important to pick a direction that's going to be sustainable. And so making choices that really feel like good choices that are going to be sustainable for you daily, so that it becomes your way of life. For me, it's about making commitments, so you're honoring yourself, because when you make a commitment and you follow through, you build trust with yourself. And so you don't have to do everything overnight. You know, that used to be me. It used to be like these big goals and these big things, and they weren't sustainable, and I'd fail and then fail. I wasn't able to achieve the thing. Then I'd be really hard on myself, and I also was reinforcing distrust because I wasn't following through on the thing. So when I pulled it right back, and I learned this through reading and, you know, started to become aware of my pattern, my habits. But when I pulled it right back and started to make small, accessible promises to myself, and I built from there. And that, to, like now, when I think about life, this is a version of myself I once prayed I could be, and it's just normal. And obviously I have other goals and other areas I can see myself expanding into and growing into and healing further. But some of the fundamental things that I do that are like brushing my teeth once were not habits for me. It's because I built slowly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So where's your way of life taking you these days? Share with us. Where can people find you? How can people follow you? How can people cheer Shira on?
Oh, I'm mostly active on the Instagram.
The gram.
The gram.
The IG.
The IG.
The OG from the IG.
Which I like to have regular breaks from as well. That's another relationship to be very intentional about. I
can actually testify for that, because as long as I Shira know, the few times we do catch up randomly, or used to when you lived in Sydney, she's like, I need to show you something on IG. Wait, I have to download the app first. Because she deleted it. And I'm like, this is so us. Like, yeah,
it is.
So she does not, she definitely does have IG breaks. So when you send a DM and she doesn't respond, it's not that she dismisses you. I can testify that woman takes breaks.
Yeah, I think it's important. Life.of.Shira, which is Shira. And then obviously not obviously, you might not know, but I have an EP out. You can find it anywhere you listen to music. So wherever you're streaming music, you can find me. My artist name is just my name, Shira, Shira.
Awesome. I'll pop some links in the description box below so it makes it easier for you to find them. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for coming with me to this beautiful location and being open for the conversation.
Thank you for having me and for sharing this experience with me. And thank you guys, anyone who's watching and listening, for being part of this moment.
Yeah. Well, you know what to do. If it's been your first time, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you've been here before, thank you for your continued support. Remember to hit the bell to get notified when a new video gets uploaded. Please subscribe if you have not yet to bring more visibility to the channel, and pop something down into the comments and tell us what you think and or what else you would like to talk about. Until then, have a beautiful day. Bye.